Hi, I'm Dr. Michelle, and I am going to show you what we do here on the Living Well Homestead in the springtime. Really, we're helping everything wake up. We're cleaning up, we're getting ready for the growing season. So when we look at the beds here, these are all my in the ground boxes. So these are boxes, and some of them have been growing things all winter long. You can see that we have bok choy over here, some spinach, quite a few Asian greens. There's things coming back. There's garlic coming up for the spring. There's some onions that are resprouting. Some of this is in the right place and some of it isn't. So one thing that I always like to think about as a weed is any plant that's in a place you don't want it. So let's say that I've got some really nice bok choy over here, but I have plans for that bed and I have other uses for it. Well, then that bok choy is going to feed the chickens. And really don't feel like you have to keep something somewhere that it's not. A lot of this we're just going to clean up as we go through this early spring season. And then what I do for these beds is I don't till anything ever, because I don't want to break up the mycelium network underneath the ground here. I want everything that has been growing and building underneath that soil to stay there. So I'm going to just add to the soil. And people always ask, how do you fertilize? The only thing I ever use is compost, and a lot of the compost we use is from right here with the chickens that we have. You can get it from other places as well if you don't have chickens, though. That's not a necessity. You can get it elsewhere. I always top dress the beds with about 2 inches of compost. I do not till it in for a couple of reasons. Number one, I want the most fertility right there in the top of the soil, because that's where we're going to plant the seeds. The seeds are the things that need the nutrients. As the water leaches down through that compost and into the soil, it's going to carry the nutrients deeper as the roots grow down. But we want the highest level of nutrients right there at the top of the soil where our seed is going to be planted. So we leave it there. The other reason is we really don't want to turn over this soil, because when you turn over the soil, you introduce a lot of oxygen to weed seeds that are underneath the soil. Well, as you and I both know, the last thing we want to do is to make more weeds grow. So we're not going to do that. So we're going to just top dress and leave it there. You can aerate this area with something called a broad fork, and we do that on occasion, but we don't do that every year, and things seem to grow just fine. So top dress everything, get it ready for the next season. A lot of the things that you see still here is just cleanup. This is just spring cleanup that we need to go through and clean up. We're already starting to work on it. Just clean up all the dead, and you can see that this herb area, this is oregano and sage, still growing strong all winter long, never stopped. We just clean everything up and get it ready to plant the new year's worth of growth. Now I do have some seeds going here in what we call the seed house. So this is the seed house, and we already have things starting in here. You can see that we have some starts already up and going, and we have a lot of starts that are going up in here on heat mats to keep them warm while they're sprouting. So lots of things happening in the seed house. By the time May hits, this is going to be completely full. We won't be able to fit another tray or another seed packet in here. Just getting going because we're at the beginning of March. Then those are a lot of the things that are heat sensitive that we really can't plant until later. But in our hoop house, things are already growing strong. So there's something called the Persephone days. It's actually from an old Greek mythology story. And the key is when a day has longer than 10 hours of sunlight, all of a sudden things start growing again. We just passed the Persephone days and things have started to grow. You can see down here in the ground we have spinach and arugula and lettuce and radishes and kale. All of these things are greens that will grow early on. We have some spinach that we started in the greenhouse that's even going to get us a bump on the season even further. This is something you can do in a tiny little thing on your back porch or in your windowsill. You can start all of these things, and now that we're past that 10-hour day length, things are going to start to grow. It's amazing how that just kind of magically starts to work. Let's go up this side. We can see the rest of this greenhouse. Oh, we can't go up this side. I forgot it's locked. We got to go backwards. So backwards we go. And one of the things I do like to point out is people will often ask, well, how do you water out here? We water with these buckets that we fill up with a hose. So we fill these buckets up with a hose, and then we just use a spigot on the front and a watering can. And that's how we water out here, because it is much too cold. It was just snowing this morning, much too cold, and we're getting freezes all the time, so we can't leave our watering systems up. Now, that is also a question people often ask, is how do I water? So when you look here, you'll see I have these overhead rainbird areas, rainbirds that are spraying. And a lot of times people are surprised to see these here, but there's a reason that we've chosen this kind of watering. Number one, it's easy. It's the easiest to set up. It's the easiest to change. So as the garden was growing and we were doing a lot of change, this was definitely the best because you don't have to change it every single year. It's gonna water no matter what. What are the downfalls of overhead watering? You use a little bit more water and you water weeds. So it's definitely a negative. However, the alternative is groundwater with drippers and those kinds of things. And I just have too much rotation happening in my garden. I would have to change the drippers and the lines every single year. So I've stuck with overhead and it works just fine. A couple of other things that we do here. So this is now the time this time of year is to get the raspberry canes trimmed. So what you're gonna do with raspberry canes is trim everything at about waist high. So everything's gonna come off at about that level right there. And then you're gonna look and see down at the bottom what looks dead. And you can tell because the dead ones look kind of gray and they'll just snap off. So we pull the dead ones completely out. That's a dead one there. We pull the dead ones completely out. Everything else comes off at about a little lower than waist high. And that's how we're gonna clean up our raspberry bed, is take everything out and clean it all. And now is the time of year to do it. Now is the time of year that we're gonna do blackberries, we're gonna do grapes, everything that needs pruning, fruit trees, everything's gonna happen right now. So you can see we've already just started cleaning up everything and cleaning out everything, getting it all ready to top dress. We'll pull down those bean towers. And we are also making a plan. Right now is time for planning. We're planning what's gonna go where. I have a crop rotation that I move through. And the main thing that it's based on is things that are heavy feeders, like tomatoes aren't gonna be in the same bed every single year. We're gonna go with, if there were tomatoes last year, they're gonna be beans this year because beans will feed the soil, tomatoes will pull from the soil. So I have a paper that I use and I copy it every single year and we go through and just move the crops from area to area, making sense based on north and south where it should go. So this is the time for planning. This is the time for buying your seeds. This is the time for cleaning up. And you know, honestly, we're all kind of excited to get outside this time of year because we've been cooped up on the inside. So we're cleaning up, we're cleaning everything, and just getting ready for the year. So that's what we're doing right now on the Living Well Homestead. We're getting things planted, we're starting all of those spring crops. What can go in right now? Anything that likes cold, which is going to be all the greens. So lettuce, kale, spinach, all the Asian greens, cabbages, those all can go in now. Also radishes, turnips, those do just fine. All your brassicas, so broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, those all can be planted now also, as can a lot of the root vegetables, carrots, beets, potatoes. You can see that there's actually not a lot left on the list that can be planted now. The things that aren't gonna go in now though are beans, corn, tomatoes, peppers, summer squash, winter squash, those are all what we call cold sensitive and they're going to die if we put them out too early. But a lot of the others can go in now. Oh, peas, I forgot about peas. Peas can go in now, they're an early season crop. So all of those things are gonna go in. Like we said, we're gonna top dress the plant, top dress the beds, and add about 2 inches of compost on everything, and then plant right into that, and that's how we plant. Get everything pruned, everything cleaned up before it starts growing back. And it's gonna be much simpler than if you wait till things start growing before you start pruning. When these have leaves on them, it's much harder to see dead things and much harder to know what's ready to clean out. So clean up now. Let's get started on our growing season.